I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Sands. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to review the movie The Spy Who Loved Me, starring Roger Moore, Richard uh, Mabon?
Richard,
Uh,
no, it was written by Richard Maybaum.
Richard, written by Richard Mabon. Sorry, I looked at the wrong thing. Cast is Roger Moore, Barbara Bash, Kurt Jurgens, who
Kurt
plays the villain.
Jurgens.
Kurt
Yeah.
Jurgens.
I almost thought you
Uh,
said Turd Ferguson.
sorry. Richard Keel is here as Jaws. Caroline Monroe.
The great
Uh,
British horror star.
yeah. Jeffrey Keane. Edward De Souza. So there's a lot of people in this movie. This movie, came out what? It's
1977.
Yeah,
I think it was the third highest grossing movie of 1977.
this
Maybe.
this had a couple release dates. So July 7th, 1977 in London.
Yeah.
July 8th, 1977 in the United States.
Mhm.
And August 3rd again in the United States. So it debuted twice in the United
Well, no, it would debut in different parts. They would do something called opening and then opening wide.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I looked at that a little wrong. The July 8th one was for the United Kingdom.
That's
So,
right. So that Australia and New
yeah,
Zealand, Canada, and Ireland and
yeah,
uh, Alabama.
yes. Its budget was 13.5 million. It's holy shit. It's
Well, at the time, that was a tremendous amount of money, and
it-
and the thing to remember is that not only was it a tremendous amount of money, but it was all independently raised. That these were indie movies,
yeah,
and that Cubby Broccoli was the guy behind it. In fact, this was his first film without his longtime companion and partner Harry Saltzman. Harry had
mm,
too many gambling debts and finally sold his half of the Bond franchise, which they were Dan Jack, named after their wives, to Cubby, to his partner Cubby. And so Cubby had a lot to prove, and this was a make or break point for the Bond franchise.
mm,
They had not been going well for quite a while, ever since they lost Connery.
mm,
They'd been sort of descending into camp and strangeness. Um, Diamonds Forever was a mess, horrible movies. It was really a low point in the franchise. Um, this is Willard Watt speaking. I mean, come on. Then you have Live and Let Die. Fun movies. These are all fun movies, but they just start to look increasingly low rent. And then Man with the Golden Gun, which you would think Christopher Lee and a midget equals box office dynamite, and it
mm,
didn't.
mm,
Or a little person, and
mm,
yeah, and so and Christopher Lee, being as tall as he is, makes the little person that much littler,
mm,
increasing their value as
mm,
as a performer. Um, but and Area Village is Sorbonne trained. But anyway, they'd really been going into the crapper. They didn't know who they were going to cast. They Roger Moore's in his third movie. And for most people, the problem with Roger Moore is that he was too brutal.
mm,
He was too serious. He was too deadly. He was too masculine, too dangerous. He was likely to explode on screen at any point. The audience couldn't take his virility,
mm,
and so they had to try and tone him down. They never were successful at it. His nostrils flaring, his just testosterone. They had to wipe the inside of the screen in theaters so that the image could get through on the next showing. There was so much testosterone that came off of Roger Moore.
mm,
I mean, just pure manly brutality from him. Really, his body, Roger Moore's body, was a cage for an animal.
mm,
But they finally controlled him with this film a little bit.
yeah. I actually I do love his Bond portrayal in Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh, it's great. But there's so much danger to it.
Yeah, um, he does a really good job. Um, do you think In your opinion, did the Bond films become too campy for those movies, or what did you think?
I think they finally got back to Fleming.
Yeah.
I think they got back to the spirit, the sort of the sad brooding quality that Fleming intended, rather than the kind of goofy mugging and high flying, pratfalls and so on, of, something like From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
Uh, those, you look at Man with the Golden Gun, or later Moonraker, and they finally got back to Fleming. They finally got back to just hardcore spy stories, serious stuff.
Yeah. I think this movie works really well because it's the movie with the most stakes, high stakes. This isn't somebody who's just after like money or ransom.
There's after the whole beef industry.
Yeah, they're after they're going to change the world by nuking it. It's pretty fucking
He has webbed hands.
yes.
Stromberg.
Uh, very very holy shit. Yeah, this movie made a lot of money too.
They did.
185.4 million. Holy shit.
Okay, Jewel, I got to tell you, I've been pulling your leg. Roger Moore is a dainty, effete little man working for UNICEF. He's not the most dangerous binder, but thank you for going along with me on that. And Moore was, this movie, I think, really helped define, in the best sense, what the Roger Moore James Bond was going to be, and that is he's the Cary Grant of James Bonds. I mean, these are lighthearted comedies, really, in a lot of ways, with the occasional serious moment.
Yeah.
And in this film, which they brought back director Lewis Gilbert, and Lewis Gilbert specialized in Bond movies about vehicles consuming smaller vehicles and then taking them someplace and holding the world ransom. Because in You Only Live Twice, pardon, effervescing. In You Only Live Twice, the space capsules are swallowing other space capsules.
Yeah.
In this, the tankers are swallowing submarines.
Yes.
And taking them away. And that was Lewis Gilbert's specialty with these Bond films. So they brought Lewis back. This is a movie that had to make money, and there's another thing. There are two other things, really. For audiences at the time, there had been such a questioning of patriotism and of a belief that one of the great Western powers could get it right and could stand for something worthwhile. And I think everyone, as cynical as they got, wanted it. They wanted to return to that time, that time of Churchill, that time of FDR, and they wanted to feel good about things again. I mean, the '60s really, and early '70s dragged us through the mud, and we got it 3 times over in the summer of 1977 because we had Star Wars, and we had, in terms of pure comedy, Smokey and the Bandit, which gave people an opportunity to have fun and really kind of believe in something, even though it's this weird kind of redneck rebellion stuff. Who cares? But there was a moment in this movie, and I remember seeing it. I was 6, and I had no idea who James Bond was, and I had no idea what England really was. I was a kid, and but somehow it lurks in the DNA. It really does. It's still the mother country, and our flag is a version of theirs. And there's a moment in this film when Willie Bogner, in the ski chase, in a yellow ski suit, the color of cowardice, as Bond, Roger Moore Bond, which is even weirder, goes off a cliff. We see him actively skiing, and he goes off a cliff, and there's no way this could be a special effect.
Yeah.
And he goes into space, and he should just there should be no more Bond.
Yeah.
And then what should happen? The thing no one's expecting.
Parachute.
This
So,
massive Union Jack parachute
yeah.
explodes out of the back of his uniform
Yeah.
and saves him. You know, the most for a secret agent, the dumbest, most obvious, least well hidden, least stealthy thing possible. But this was not a time for that. This was a time to tell the culture, especially the negative Nancy's in the culture. Your time's up.
Yeah.
And to have the Bond theme, I mean, this show tune written by Monty Norman, by way of John Barry, by way of the absolutely unapologetic Marvin Hamlish, explode out of the back and save him and bring him down for an adventure bigger than anyone had ever seen. It was a real stunt. It's real. Was for audiences absolutely electric. There were audiences in the world who burst into applause, prolonged applause at the sight of that. The culture needed that so much. And, just to editorialize for a moment, I did not see whatever that, No Time to Die or whatever that thing was, the recent Bond movie.
Neither have I.
And yeah, and I was lucky enough to meet someone pretty important to the Bond films, and he hadn't seen it either. Um, and um, and it is a perverse travesty to make a Bond film where he dies.
Yeah.
What is the goddamn point? I don't go to my escapism to see James Bond die. I used to go for an exciting cocktail of adventure and romance and sexual harassment and basically everything HR would not want to see anywhere. I can you imagine being the MI6 HR guy. You don't even start. But that's what we go to these films for,
Yeah.
and we don't go to see him fucking die.
No.
And the
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Okay. While Patrick's off for a minute, I do think there's a lot of things of this film that are just amazing, number one. Number two, there is a great sense of patriotism in this movie. I agree with Patrick on that. Watching this over again, I feel, sometimes I've talked about how, and I'm not applying it to this movie, that even the worst James Bond movie is still a James Bond movie. It's the same thing I feel with any franchise for the most part. But, and again, I've not seen No Time to Die, so I can't judge it, and I'm not here to. But I'll say this. I knew going in how some people felt about Roger Moore's Bond performances, but I did not let that affect me. I enjoyed his performances in Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, Moonraker. I enjoyed those, and I enjoyed these. I'll maybe do a video about. I guess I'll say about it here about Daniel Craig. I think the issue with the Craig films, at least the ones I've seen, really the problem with the Daniel Craig James Bond movies didn't start with the third film. It started with the first one, Casino Royale, because they made the real heel should have been Mad Mikkelsen's character. That's who the main heel should have been, but it wasn't. In every way, they made, by making his character sort of lose, be there, lose, and he's working for somebody. Okay, I feel the biggest issue there with that with Casino Royale is you took away from that villain to be the total villain. Like he's working for somebody the whole time. With this, there's no second villain. To me, with a Bond movie, I'm not saying you can't have multiple villains, but there needs to be a distinction between head honcho and henchman.
Well, sure.
Like there's a distinction. Okay, yes, Jaws is dangerous, but Jaws takes orders as well.
Yeah.
And there's a reason Jaws takes orders because, hey, the head villain is somebody you should fear. And they get that with every Bond movie you generally see, that's the message. You should fear the main boss.
The thing I fear most about Jaws, Richard Keel, is that he's going to get to that portalette before I do. That's not a situation. On fajita night? Or on the set? No way. Oof. I can't even imagine.
By the way, the fight choreography between
Which,
is really good in this.
Oh, yeah. There a guy named Vic Armstrong for years who, they really brought the whole Bond family in on this. And Vic was best in the business. And, of course, they brought back Ken Adam, who they hadn't had for a while. And, normally he's a set designer. He works with angles a lot, planes. In this case, all rounded shapes, which, cost him a fortune because it's hard to do from a carpentry point of view and a manufacturing point of view, all these curves. But it gave the Bond films a look they had never had before that was just fantastic. I mean, Atlantis is this amazing looking set.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, really seeing Spy Love Me was one of the great artistic experiences I had as a young man.
Man.
And it came out after Star Wars. In both movies, it was just one damn thing after another. It really was. If you were not alive at that time, or going to the movies, or a kid, 6, going to the movies back then, there's no way to really describe what Star Wars, Smokey the Bandit, in its crazy, anarchic, satirical way, and Spy Love Me were like. It was just one goddamn thing after another that you had never thought of, that you'd never seen. This is, I think, one of my main introductions to the pyramids.
Yeah.
To Men with Metal Teeth.
Yeah.
To submarines. To sports cars, really, other than the Porsches that my father had, which sounds awfully privileged, but it was a long story. Anyway, it was a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a thing, and it was the last gasp of Ron Burgundy culture existing without irony. Wonderful.
I could see your dad cruising in a Porsche.
Oh yeah, yellow 924 with 924 written on the hood.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, he's in charge.
Roger Moore did a really good job playing Bond, in my opinion, in all the films he did. I talked about this while you were away a bit, that even the worst Bond movie is still a James Bond movie. Now I haven't. Now I say
have
that.
Have you seen Die Another Day lately?
Yes, I have seen Die Another Day. I don't feel Die Another Day is too bad. They just didn't stick to. It was too many plots.
Jewel, love yourself more.
Yeah, I know.
Love yourself more. That's
but Die Another Day proves a lot of things. Number one, Pierce that should not have been Pierce Brosnan's last movie. That's number one.
No, of course not.
Number two, Pierce Brosnan was ready to take James Bond down a darker road. Then there's number three. you have the Die Another Day's plot is okay. First,
You just
they're
said Die
aiming
Another
a
Day.
laser at Spectre, which is interesting. Okay, they're going to destroy Spectre. What the fuck?
You
Like,
just said Die Another Day and plot in the same
yeah, I
sentence.
know.
Keep going.
It's so much. It's like so crazy. It's like, and then they completely ignore the Spectre thing, and it's like, wait, where is this going? Now, I do love the female heel. I think that was really good.
I don't
That plot
remember.
twist was
I
great.
don't.
But again, I don't think it's I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a really entertaining movie. Despite
Madonna made weird sounds instead of a song at the beginning.
but yeah, I know she's in the
It
movie.
sounds like a broken personal digital assistant. You know,
Yeah, but
it was like the song sounded like a modem starting up.
Madonna. In the movie,
Thank God she's his fencing instructor, of course.
yeah,
And
she,
to have a sword fight in a James Bond movie and to waste it. You
yeah,
finally get one. He's just wasting a stupid sequence. Doesn't need to be there. It's there so we can have a sword fight in a James Bond movie.
yeah,
No, you make that really count.
yeah. I think that's something they should have take away because the fencing scene is pretty. Other than to make the introduction into the one of the main villains, it's like okay, like you could have made that introduction elsewhere. That's the one thing I will say about that. But like my least favorite so far has been the Daniel Craig Bonds. I haven't seen the third
Really?
one. I haven't seen the most.
You haven't seen
recent.
Skyfall?
No, I've seen Skyfall, but I haven't seen the last one. No Time to Die.
Well, yeah, I mean, at one point I was gonna go into media studies into a PhD program after I got my MFA. I was gonna write my dissertation on the Bond films,
Really?
and I went from being that guy. Yeah, James Bond was my Dark Shadows. I went from being that guy to very deliberately not seeing the latest and greatest James Bond movie. Yeah.
I haven't. Again, that's the only one I haven't seen yet. I do need to watch it, I suppose. But that's the thing. So far, I've liked Daniel Craig's the least. But that's just me.
Really?
And again,
Skyfall.
I don't think it's his fault.
Skyfall. Skyfall is among the least. That's a hell of a movie. You need to go back and watch that.
I would have appreciated. Okay, I would have appreciated Skyfall more if Quantum of Solace didn't exist.
What's wrong with Quantum of Solace?
It's just pointless. It really is.
It's not pointless. He is deep into his grieving for Vesper, and and he's taking it out, and we're beginning to learn the Spectre mystery. And a man dies from drinking motor oil at the end. Ooh.
My God. But yeah, this movie I love. The Spy Who Loved Me is really, really great. Great James Bond movie, and Roger Moore delivers. He delivers in all his Bond performances. I think the earlier Bonds were Connery, Moore, Lazenby. And my favorite Bond is it's the one that who am I thinking about? The guy who comes out.
It's gonna be mine. Is it Tim Dalton?
Yeah, Timothy.
Yeah,
Dalton.
I love Tim Dalton. He is the guy I would trust.
Yeah,
to save the world. I mean, not Timothy
Dalton.
Dalton, but the Timothy Dalton Bond.
Yeah, I love Timothy's performance as James Bond. Again, it's just sometimes
he is one of the most criminally underused actors.
Yes, absolutely. And he's in the movie Lion in Winter as well.
He is, yeah, all the way back then.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the interesting Dalton story. Because Dalton and Pierce Brosnan's fates intertwined very strangely. And it's sad and beautiful and weird. Dalton is an actor of tremendous integrity
Yeah.
to the point that he really ticked a lot of people off on the Bond set when he delivered his signature line, Bond, James Bond, because he does it in Living Daylights in a very business-like fashion,
Yeah.
which I loved. I
Yeah.
thought, wow, here's a Bond not there to advertise his name or something like that. Here's a Bond who has business to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who Bond is. Bond is a guy with a lot of business to do. And so it's down the hall and to the left, Tim. But seriously, he's got a lot to take care of, and and you can tell by the way he uses his walk. He's a woman's man with no time to talk. Um, and I cherish that about him. Um, he is easily the one who strikes me as the most professional,
Yeah.
the one who's there to do the job. Uh, I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah. He's really great in License to Kill too. Okay.
That's a really underrated movie. Oh, it's the Brosnan Dalton story. So I think way back around Lion and Winter, they started courting Dalton to take over Bond, and I think maybe on Her Majesty's Secret Service they had talked to him, or Diamonds Are Forever they definitely talked to him.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm too young.
Yeah.
I'm not ready yet." And so Living Daylights comes along, and they cast Pierce Brosnan. And I think they were like right up almost at the press conference where they were going to officially introduce him and so on and so forth. Well, the rumor had gotten out, and ratings on reruns of Remington Steele, which had been canceled, but NBC was doing some strip reruns during the summer,
Mm-hmm.
went through the roof because people wanted to see, oh, who's the new James Bond? Is this Pierce Brosnan guy? Well, NBC saw this as a reason to reactivate all of Remington Steele and call them
Yeah.
all back, use some reserve activation clause in their contract, like McCoy and Motion Picture, and so Brosnan lost the part, and he had so wanted it because his wife Cassandra, who had recently died of cancer,
Yeah.
mother of his kid, died of cancer, and she had been in For Your Eyes Only, and so Pierce had been around the sets, and was kind of a little bit part of the Bond family already, and then
Yeah.
he had to lose this, and Brosnan tells the story of being on an airplane, his very young son. And I think Living Daylights came on as the in-flight movie, and they were stuck with it. And the kid, being like 4 or 5, something like that, said, "Oh, Daddy, is this one of yours?" And this widower, with this kid raising him alone, had to say no. And so then the Bond films are wonderful at getting into weird legal fracas and all of that. And apparently that stuff happened again after Living Daylight or after License to Kill. And so that's why there were no Bond films until like 19 from like uh, 89 to 95, the
Yeah.
longest delay there had been. And at that point, they did go back for Goldeneye. They went back to
Pierce.
uh, uh, oh, what's his face, the one I like so much, Tim Dalton. They went back to Dalton, and they said, "Hey, do you think we're good to go?" And he said, "No, I'm too old."
Yeah.
He had the integrity to say that, and so lo and behold, what should happen? But they got Pierce Brosnan, and so it had a happy ending. But a lot of that was due to the integrity of Timothy Dalton.
Yeah.
So, Jewel, I must run. I must hit the ejector seat.
Yeah, this is movies a 10, by the way, before we go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Patrick, you have a good night, buddy.
Take care.
Take care. Bye bye. But yeah, it's a really, really good movie. There's so many amazing scenes within this film. Um, you have the fight choreography with Jaws, with Richard Kill's character, is really, really good, especially because it's not just Roger Moore and it's not just Richard Kill. It's the female agent, the woman. I forget the name of this. Kick myself. Yeah, Barbara Bash. Barbara Bash is in that scene with them, and she's, she's also assisting too. And the fight choreography on the train is really good too. I love how you're not Jaws is very Michael Myers esque, and this is before Michael Myers. So, oh my god! And you really have him just stalking, creeping around, and those teeth—they're just menacing. What a character! Richard Kill was an amazing, amazing actor, and you can tell he's having fun. Now, and Patrick's right. The spider set, the Atlantis set, it looks like a spider. Really, really amazing. Looks phenomenal. And the way they do the inside and the exterior, really good. The submarines look great. But that opening, yeah, too, in the snow, them skiing, the jump off the hill, because something's going to happen because there's a shootout going on. Bond's escaping. Roger Moore, definitely an underrated Bond. I think that's the thing too with James Bond is that I talked about this with Daniel Craig that Bond is not this everybody wants Bond as this muscle bound guy. He's not. He's just your average. That's not how he looks. So it'll be interesting to see who they cast as the next James Bond. That's number one. Another thing too about this movie that I'm going to get into the production here. The movie. Hold on. Given the relatively poor financial returns and general unfavorable response of critics to its predecessor, The Man with the Golden Gun, The Spy Who Loved Me was a pivotal film for the James Bond franchise. So that's things Patrick was talking about. So yeah, we already mentioned that. So what is Richard? Said something about Richard Donner here? What's going on? So they approached a lot of people about directing this movie. Basically, I guess Richard Donner was one of them. So, amazing director. I'd want him to direct my movie. He doesn't direct this though. He does not direct this at all. The director. Let's see. Does it say produced? Yeah, directed by Lewis Gilbert is who directs this. So people know that's who directed this. The Spy Who Loved Me. Really good really great James Bond movie. And I think too, Barbara Bash, really underrated female Bond girl. Because you have a spy, a dual spy movie going on, and this isn't the first one. I mean, this isn't. We've seen Bond go up against other spies. From Russia with Love, is basically spy versus spy. If you've ever seen it, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites. Connery did. That'll be all. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Great film, The Spy Who Loved Me. You guys have a good night. Be careful. Bye.